And if you guys don't know what it exactly is, it happening again is pretty much me saying that the whole all Indiana Fever fans are racist and all players of colour should want to leave, and we're now at the stage where people are demanding Caitlin Clark speak out publicly, apologising to Raven Johnson.
Suddenly, and without any warning, the sports world has been rocked by a moment that's leaving fans shaking their heads in pure disbelief faster than ever. Because what initially seemed like a simple and harmless demand rapidly escalated into serious talk of an apology, and somehow, once again, Caitlin Clark finds herself caught right in the middle of the chaos. But this time it's not about a clutch game winner or yet another historic record being broken. Instead, it's unexpected off-court drama. That's pulling massive attention for all the wrong and controversial reasons.
So, as expected, the Raven Johnson pick has started 2024 all over again. It has started 2024 all over again, lads. In the WNBA media, in the WNBA fandom.
Instead of celebrating standout highlights, the spotlight has now dramatically shifted toward controversy that feels completely forced and unnecessary, and fans are far from staying quiet as frustration continues to pour in with strong opinions from every direction, turning this entire situation into one heated debate. Whether demanding an apology before even sharing the court signals elite-level confidence or simply comes across as clear entitlement, and that razor-thin line between self-belief and arrogance is exactly what's driving this intense conversation forward, because the court of public opinion isn't slowing down and has already begun delivering a harsh, divided, and very vocal verdict on everything unfolding.
A scenario. But like you've got people demanding Caitlin Clark apologize and denounce her fans. I'm like, what the fuck is...
Forget all the noise and let's break this situation down for what it truly is without dressing it up like some deep, complicated mystery, because when you actually look at the facts, it's pretty simple to understand. And here's exactly how it unfolded in clear terms. Raven Johnson stepped forward and made her position completely clear to everyone watching, openly stating that she expects a formal apology from Caitlin Clark before she would even consider the idea of sharing the court together, instantly transforming a basic situation into a massive, headline-grabbing controversy.
The more of this crap that happens, the harder it is to keep a good locker room. Like we saw it in 2024. Like Nalissa Smith nearly breaking down at the end of the season. Like, because obviously with Dejanay,
there was absolutely no room left for misinterpretation either, as it became crystal clear this wasn't about elevating competition, settling anything on the court, or even moving forward in a professional way. Instead, Raven Johnson directly demanded a formal apology from Caitlin Clark, and fans instantly responded with strong, divided opinions, questioning the real motive behind such a bold and public stance, because the moment you step into that kind of spotlight with a demand like that, people are naturally going to ask whether it's truly about respect or just a calculated push for relevance. Even though in the high-pressure world of sports, emotional moments, heated exchanges, and bruised egos are completely normal and part of real competition, there's always a visible line separating natural intensity from turning situations into public, personal grievances. And once that line gets crossed by saying you won't even step on the court without a formal apology, the entire conversation quickly shifts away from basketball and into something much deeper, where it begins to feel less about the game itself and more about control, influence, and shaping the narrative off the court rather than proving anything on it. And this is exactly the moment where everything flips, as fans across the entire sports world collectively start raising their eyebrows, because Caitlin Clark, whether you support her or constantly criticize her, has very intentionally built her reputation around one powerful and consistent mindset. She shows up, competes at the highest level, and lets her performance speak louder than anything else without attaching conditions, excuses, or behind-the-scenes demands. So the instant someone tries to shift that narrative and redirect the focus toward apologies instead of pure production and results on the court, it immediately grabs attention in a way that doesn't sit right with a huge portion of fans, especially when you consider how crucial timing is in moments like this, because this isn't quietly happening during an off-season lull where it might go unnoticed. Instead, it's unfolding right in the middle of peak attention while Clark is already one of the most talked about names in the sport, with every move she makes under intense scrutiny, every game dissected in detail, and every single moment analyzed from multiple angles, which only amplifies the spotlight even further and turns an already tense situation into something that feels impossible to ignore or avoid. With her name continuing to dominate headlines and echo across global media platforms, every single mention of Caitlin Clark only intensifies the spotlight even more. So stepping directly into that wave of massive attention with a demand like this was always bound to spark serious questions about intent, as fans quickly began wondering whether this is truly about respect and resolving unfinished tension, or if it's a calculated move to gain relevance by attaching to one of the biggest ongoing storylines in the sport. And that uncomfortable question is exactly what many hesitate to say out loud, even though the online reaction made it crystal clear where most people stand, as social media erupted almost instantly like wildfire, not with calm or balanced takes but with sharp sarcasm, relentless criticism, and brutally honest reactions, with comments ranging from an apology for what? To, since when do competitors need permission to play? And the most repeated sentiment of all, just play the game, which perfectly captures the core frustration, because at its foundation, basketball has never required apologies to function. It thrives on performance, execution, and results, and that's exactly why this entire situation feels so out of place, as the focus has completely shifted away from what happens on the court and moved towards something unfolding entirely off it, leaving one major question hanging in the air that no one can ignore anymore. So the question everyone keeps coming back to becomes impossible to ignore. What exactly would Caitlin Clark even be apologizing for? Because when you really slow down and look at the situation, there hasn't been any major public incident, no viral clip, no clear-cut moment where she openly disrespected Raven Johnson in a way that crossed a visible line. And without a specific example that fans can actually point to, the entire demand starts to feel vague, confusing, and difficult to fully understand. And the reality is that vague demands almost never sit well with the public, because if the issue can't be clearly explained, people naturally begin to question whether there's even a real problem there at all, or if it's being exaggerated for attention. And that's exactly where the situation begins to attract sarcasm and heavy criticism. Because from the perspective of any serious competitor grinding every single day, training hard, pushing limits, constantly improving and fighting to earn real opportunities, the idea of refusing to play unless an apology comes first doesn't come across as competitive or driven. Instead, it feels completely disconnected from the mindset that typically defines elite, high-level sports. That immediately comes across as conditional, and the truth is professional sports have never been designed to reward conditions. They reward undeniable results, elite execution, and performance under pressure, which is exactly why so many fans are reacting with visible frustration right now. Not because they believe athletes can't have personal feelings or disagreements, but because bringing those issues into the public spotlight like this completely shifts the narrative away from real competition, turning what should be a discussion about skill and dominance into a debate over who feels more disrespected. And if we're being completely honest, that's never why people tune in to watch games. They show up for intense matchups, unforgettable clutch moments, and players who prove everything through their actions, not through public demands, which is why this entire situation feels so disconnected from what sports are truly meant to represent. And right in the middle of all this stands Caitlin Clark, whose position in this situation speaks louder than words ever possibly could. What really stands out here is that Caitlin Clark hasn't actually said much at all. There's been no dramatic reaction, no public exchanges, no viral social media response trying to win the moment, just complete silence. And as we've seen time and time again, that kind of silence can speak louder than any carefully crafted statement ever could, because by choosing not to engage, she's indirectly sending a very clear message that her focus remains on basketball and nothing else, which ironically makes the entire demand for an apology feel even more amplified and out of place, not in a powerful or commanding way, but in a way that feels unnecessary and disconnected. Because when one side is focused on setting conditions while the other is simply showing up and playing, fans naturally gravitate toward the one delivering results, and that reaction is almost instinctive. But this is also where things start to go deeper than just one moment or one statement, because this situation reflects a broader pattern that many observant fans are beginning to notice more frequently, where anytime Clark's name is even loosely involved in a situation, whether directly or indirectly, it quickly escalates into a major headline that dominates the conversation. What makes this even more noticeable is that it isn't always tied to something Caitlin Clark directly does, because much of the narrative is often fueled by what others say about her, creating a unique and somewhat unusual dynamic where instead of strictly competing against her on the court, it starts to feel like some players are reacting to her rapidly growing public image, and there's a clear distinction between those two approaches, because true competition is about staying locked in on your own performance, preparation, and what it takes to win at the highest level, while reacting shifts the attention away from your own game and places it squarely on her, and fans recognize that difference almost instantly, which is why this situation is being seen less as a genuine basketball issue, and more as something that looks like a move for attention. And while that perception may not be completely fair in every aspect, the reality is public opinion doesn't rely on perfect fairness. It operates on what people believe they're seeing, and right now that perception isn't doing Raven Johnson any favors whatsoever. The second you call for an apology, without providing any clear public context, you instantly put yourself in a position where people don't question your talent or dedication. They begin questioning your intentions instead. And once that shift takes place, the entire narrative slowly drifts away from your actual game, which is the last outcome any serious competitor should ever want. Because in sports, your performance is supposed to be the headline, not the conditions or demands attached to it. And to be completely fair, this isn't about fans randomly picking sides without reason. It's about how the situation looks from the outside perspective. Since fans aren't inside locker rooms or part of private conversations, they can only react to what's visible and publicly said, and right now what they're seeing is a strong and very public demand, without a clearly explained reason being directed at Caitlin Clark, who already happens to be one of the most watched, heavily analyzed, and constantly talked about players in the game, which only amplifies the reaction and intensifies how this entire situation is being perceived. When you really connect all of these factors together, it becomes almost unavoidable that a massive and immediate reaction was going to explode, and that's exactly what we're seeing unfold right now in real time, as fans from every corner respond with a mix of frustration, genuine confusion, sharp criticism, and an overwhelming wave of sarcasm. All of it circling back to one simple but powerful message: just play the game, because at its core that's what truly matters to them above everything else. Not apologies, not personal conditions, and definitely not off-court narratives that drag attention away from the real action. They care about raw competition, relentless effort, high-level execution, and what actually happens the moment the clock starts ticking. And that's exactly why this entire situation involving Caitlin Clark feels like it's drifting further and further away from the true essence of basketball, slowly shifting the spotlight away from on-court intensity, performance, and elite-level battles, and placing it instead on unnecessary drama that fans never asked to follow in the first place. And what makes it even more concerning is that the longer this continues, the more it risks reshaping the narrative completely, turning what should be a story built around rising competition, star power, and elite talent into one dominated by distractions, headlines, and off-court tension, where the actual game starts taking a backseat. And if that happens, it doesn't just affect one player or one moment. It impacts how the entire situation is remembered, because in sports, the moments that truly last are always defined by what happens on the court, not by the noise that surrounds it.